Morning. Name's Rick, and I am an addict. From Michigan City. Kind of stuck between two areas, but they don't fight over me. Um, I was asked shortly before the meeting started if I could share, and I said sure. And then I asked what the topic was, and then the chairperson had to come track me down. 5 minutes after the meeting was supposed to start, so I apologize for being late. Emotional balance. When I got into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, everything was an emotion and I had no balance. And I mean everything was an emotion. Good, bad, indifferent. It could take me from 0 to 120 in half a second, and my response was always the same. Because for the majority of my life, I was striving to be emotionless, with the assistance of some very major drug use. It took a while, it took a long while. They show you that poster in rehab, it's got the faces, got the emotions underneath it. One of these days I'm going to get Hippie Dave and rip the t-shirt off his back. Because one of the first times I met him, he was wearing a t-shirt, had all the emotions listed. Every face was the alien face. They were all the same, and they were all alien. Yeah. Once I, took some suggestions and allowed myself, it was one of the first freedoms, to experience emotions without running, hiding, masking. It was pretty scary. And of course, the first emotions I really had to deal with, are universal to our disease. Are anger, guilt, and remorse. Shame. There weren't too many positive experiences, of responding to emotions early in recovery. It was, a whole dealing with the wreckage of the past, and it took a while for my emotional perspective to change so that everything wasn't a negative. And, scientists tell me that there's a chemical difference between tears of joy and tears of sorrow. There's a difference in our body's chemistry in rage and anger and love and joy. And maybe deep down that's, part of what got me and kept me into active use in my addiction, was trying to the best of my ability to gain some control over an area of my life that would just pop up and, say good morning, I'm Joy, you're going to have to deal with me today. It's like, no way, man. I don't know how to deal with you. I think I'm going to crawl back in my shell for a while, It took me a while to allow myself the freedom to experience positive emotions, because just like we're, it says that many of us ran from success, Well, part of the success of the program and abstinence was the fact that, I went from experiencing a single emotion based in self-centered fear that expressed itself in anger to slowly branching out, and learning for the first time since I was a child, how to allow myself, to sit for a second and go, where's that poster? I got to point at a face. I need the help. I don't have the experience. What am I feeling right now? And for the longest time, all those feelings were on the salty side of the tears, because even happy, positive, joyous events, through my self-centeredness, somehow wound up in fear. And I responded in anger, So through that process, it's like, it's like you grew up in a family of 7. Well, not me, and when you went in the ice cream store, Mom didn't want to be bothered with 37 flavors. She'd said, vanilla, all of you, So now I'm here as an adult, and I'm in the ice cream store, and it's got way more than 37 flavors. And I'm like, Tutti Frutti? Wow, what a world, What a world. And the lessons, initially, because I was still so shut down internally and so clenched, that I wasn't allowing myself the experience of these emotions, the way I learned was through the empathy of the one addict sharing with another in rooms. And I go, whoa, I can't feel that for myself. How the hell am I feeling that for you? And that's where the permission came. It was okay to feel those for myself, But I still suffer from a disease, and it's self-centered, and it tries to grab control of everything so that when I start to fill in the blank, good, bad, or indifferent, there's a major part of me that goes, no. We're going back to clamp down. We're going back to first response. Wrong. We're going back to, I don't know this shit, so I'm just going to respond in fear and anger again. And this is with time abstinent from drugs, and hopefully with a little bit of recovery and working the steps. Because the funny thing I learned was once you guys showed me how to feel, and it was okay, and I didn't have to respond immediately with any feeling with fear and anger, then you showed me some shit to feel about. Be grateful you made it here. That's the first one. I'm like, really? Surrender and acceptance, yeah. That's what got me in the rooms. It's gratitude of the first steps, what kept me here. And then it was have some hope. I'm like, aren't you guys doing that a little early? Second step, hope. Heck. And realizing that I was just this morning, that the hope shots in this program come to me. Sometimes I have to work at them, because there's not any lesson in here that does not have hope in it, because the lesson is no matter what, he is, anger, fear, guilt, remorse, joy, happiness, love. Oh, I said the L word. Without responding in clamshell mode, and reacting in anger and fear. Whoa. But I had to see it in y'all before I saw it myself. And then, third step. Here's the source of all emotions. aren't we rushing things a little bit? You know, in the 12th, man, it says, having had, as a result of these steps, a spiritual awakening, which is all about emotion, you know, but now in the 3rd, you make me come to grips and acknowledge the source of all my emotions. All of them. It's my higher power, giving me gifts of how to be human, you know? And then through the other processes of the steps, the inventory, the listings of my personal shortcomings as a human being, my learning that I have the ability to acknowledge my wrongdoings in a proper manner and to make the commitment that I will no longer respond in those situations the way I used to, and to do that on a daily basis, and then to get back every day asking for my God's will in my life, and then maybe through the help of that God, you know, having an example for someone else. And that did really good to start filling in some of those faces on that shirt and turn them away from aliens and turn them into joy, happiness. I'm human sometimes. Guilt, shame, and remorse. You know, but legitimate guilt, shame, and remorse. You know, not manufactured. Oh yeah, balance. See, because I've learned that I'm a human being, I have emotions, it's okay to respond in appropriate manners and not just the one way I kept defending myself. Because of my background, my idea of balance was always even, one side to the other. You know, I knew I was getting a good deal when those things just sat like that and didn't move. I was like, good deal. It's balance. What it really was a measurement on a balance. When I got the opportunity in recovery and I went to school, and I wound up being an instrumentation technician. And they have a definition of balance for any ongoing moving process that involves change. And I saw that. I'm in a steel mill in a classroom with a book in front of me, and he's showing this, you know, projection up here, and I'm like, It's not stationary. It's not sitting still. My life isn't. You know, so the people that went before me that I thought were my best examples, that showed me that balance was something that was somewhere between a piece of plywood or a steel I-beam, because it was flat and it didn't move. It must have balance. And through the examples they showed me, that when anything came off of that level, you know, the trying times, the times we work, the times we still have to run away because we feel too good, we feel too much love, it's taken me right off of that solid flat surface. So if that's not balance, what is? And what they told me about any living, moving process that involves change was you have an impact. Something changes. And you went off that straight line, and all of a sudden, I'll take the positive example, we go up. At some point, we reach a point where it stops going up and it starts coming down. And although I'm above this level plane, all I know is I'm heading south. I'm going down. It didn't feel like it felt on the way up. But I'm still way up here. But all I can see is the bottom of the roller coaster. You And because I'm an addict, my brain's already dug that hole deeper than the rails are, and every car behind me is going to crash. Because that's how we deal with that. But I'm still way over my balance. So what do? Well, the process of balance they taught me was the fact that that curve will extend below that level plane. It will. It's a natural living process. At some point, when I think the roller coaster cars are crashing in behind me, I'll turn the corner again. I'm going up. Even though I'm way down here, all I can see is the clouds, the top. But I keep going past the center. And their definition of balance that they gave me, that I went, it's not that simple. Nothing's that simple. Is that within, they call it a quarter turn balance, within 4 waves, I will return to the point that I started with the same amplitude of the wave. Because that was the other thing they taught me, is I didn't start flat and level. I'm moving, I'm changing. So when I expect balance in my life today, that just tells me that my waves, my amplitudes of emotions and feelings are within a nice little band that doesn't move very much, and it's still going up and it's still going down day to day and minute to minute. But when that impact hits me and I go, guilt, fear, anger, remorse, grieving, love, joy, any of them. And then I sit around listening in rooms and I hear terms like knock me off my square. I said, well, hell, if I was square to begin with, I didn't have much to get knocked off for. I'm moving, I'm changing, So for me, the emotional balance is that when I do have the impact in my life through the steps and the examples I've seen, I no longer respond to every emotion going to fear and it's expressed in anger and rage, to having this spectrum of feelings and a spectrum of responses. And I know they're still not all appropriate, because I'm still learning. But the hope that you guys gave me and the hope that my definition of balance gives me is that I will return to the point somewhere near that I began. Whether it takes a minute, an hour, day, month, a year, I was thinking about what to share, and I, said it wouldn't be honest for me to get up here and share about emotional balance without talking about relationships. Which are not a comfortable area in many addicts' lives, especially mine. And my mind went back to the fact that I've been divorced over 3 years from a beautiful young woman that I met in the rooms. It was the same woman the day I divorced her as the day I met her. And jumped right over one relationship I'd had since then. And the reason that happened, and I had to think about it, was the fact that that relationship, she kept telling me that we weren't emotionally attached. We weren't in an emotional relationship. And I said, fine. And that relationship lasted half a year. And it wasn't until that relationship was over that I was able to process and respond to all the emotions that have been shoved into an airtight box for 6 months. Because in my denial and, my ability of getting my needs met and everything else that goes with a relationship, companionship, togetherness, just time spent with someone else. and I was told it wasn't an emotional attachment. So every time I felt something in that area, it didn't get put away, it got put in a lead-lined safe, lest it disturb our emotionless relationship. 'Cause I didn't want that. And it took me almost as long to finally properly feel and express those emotions as the relationship itself lasted. But the beauty of it was it only took me about 2 months before the recognition set in. And it was only 2 months of wandering around of going, what is happening? It's okay, we weren't in love. And it only took me a few months after that of opening up and being honest with the people that knew me, you know, and through many ups and downs where the stuff that comes out sideways was happening, because it definitely wasn't about what was going on in my life today, because I was still dealing with the stuff that was, 6 months old. Is that baggage? So I wound up apologizing on a regular basis for my responses and behaviors and tried not to get in too deep an explanation of it. No, it really wasn't about you. It was about this lovely young woman and stuff that happened 6 months ago. And when I look at that example in my life and think about where that would have been, the year before, the year after I got clean in Narcotics Anonymous, I was truly, truly grateful. It was like, wow. How the baggage accumulated. Probably still some work to be done there. But able to put things in a proper perspective and respond properly to God-given emotions, which is one of the few things that makes this life livable. It's a blessing. I only did it because you guys showed me how. I love each and every one of you. That's all I have.
Our second speaker just stepped out for a minute, so I think he'll be back. Oh, you're right there. Our second speaker's right here. I'm so confused. There's something new. I'm confused. Come on, Jesse. Come on, man. I don't. I thought that dude told me he was speaking, man.
Blind motherfucker.
Hey, you know what? But I'm here. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
got
saying,
you.
man?
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jesse.
I ain't gonna cop a resentment over that.
Emotional balance, baby.
No, I'm grateful. I got manipulated by my sponsor to share at this workshop. And I like, it's a part of my emotional balance is being able to be triggered and manipulated by other people and not recognizing it. So. No, it's funny because I'm sorry. Wow. I'm Jesse and I'm an addict. There was the sign-up sheet, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll fix him. I'll find the fucking thing that I struggled the most with. Emotional balance. There you go. I'm going to fuck this workshop all up. Stop kidding. But, no, I was sharing with him last night some of the stuff that stunted me emotionally growing up, and a lot of us have the same story. I mean, I don't really have to dig too deep, but emotions were not safe for me to have. I mean, there were certain instances that, where I would put my heart on my sleeve to my family and to my mother, and it would just get shredded, And she was an active addict, and she struggled. I mean, that's just part of her story. And I I had a grandfather who was pretty much like a hero to me. And when he passed away, I was 12. I remember this. There's a couple moments that I remember. And I didn't get emotional. I cried a little bit right when I found out. And then preparation for the funeral and during the funeral and the wake and all that, I didn't cry until the very end of the funeral when they told us to put the rose on the casket. That's it. I fucking lost it, man. And I was just an emotional basket case. And my brother Ricky drove me to the luncheon, and I walk in and I'm a wreck, man. And my mother walks up to me and she goes, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Knock it off. You're embarrassing me." And I'm like, so I learned early to stuff, and just to stuff, and to where the only emotion that I was actually able to feel was being a clown, because I liked the rush that it gave me with dealing with other people around me. It fixed it. Along with dope, it was another avenue where it was safe. I felt safe doing that. It was easy to roll into that crowd of people that was safe to, act the fool and be a clown, And, but emotions were scary, and they're still horribly scary for me, man. I mean, but it wasn't until early in my program that certain emotions started coming out, because it's either the emotion was going to come out or the behavior was going to come out, and I remember crying at my first meeting, and it didn't stop. It just all flew out of me, and I'm like, this is crazy as hell, man. And get it together, man. Get it together. I never allowed it to feel that much out of control, because through all the years of just stuffing and not feeling safe to be emotional, I still have I'm sorry, I'm trailing. I'm scattered a little bit, but I have a resentment against a man that was in my life. Nothing horribly inappropriate. I mean, he liked to thump on me a little bit, but I gotta be honest, sometimes I probably deserved it. I was a little asshole. But I remember one time something happened, and I got real honest. And I think I was in maybe 7th grade or something like that. And I just flat out said, "You guys don't care about me. You just don't," and family went out to eat. And so this man starts taking food off my plate. "Since we don't care about you." And again, stuff. Because if you act out on this, it's either going to be bad or the consequences of this are far worse. Stuff, wrap it up tight, And until it come out, an active addiction, it come out in rage. Because that was the only feelings that I saw in my home that were acceptable to feel. When I'm getting thumped on, okay, that's an outlet. I could do that, And, I was really sensitive, man. And it's stuff I worked out through my step work, that I was a very sensitive kid, and I needed that freedom to be able to share feelings. That's who I was. I'm real relational as a person, and it just got squashed, man. And it's still, I got to be honest, man, it still messes with me. I've thrown some steps on it, but it's still, some of that stuff still bothers me, Emotional balance is not something that I don't want to say it's not something I excel at. There's certain times, but I'm learning. Every time I may have an outburst, or I may have an issue, or something comes up, I'm honest enough to look at it. I don't want to say clinically, but I'm able to look at the situation and be like, what's your part in it? Because the stuff I learned in early recovery. Look at your side of the street. What's your part of it? How did it make you feel? What real feelings did it tap on? Because I had to relearn that rage wasn't an automatic response. that there was anger, and anger wasn't the automatic response. You know, I had to learn that, okay, this is tapping on your betrayal, this is tapping on your feeling less than, and what's your response to that? Frustration. What do you do when unused frustration? You get angry. What do you do with that anger if you don't have an outlet? It becomes rage. And sometimes that process takes, if you don't recognize it, it takes like that, man. I've gone to meetings, man, and we'll have a business meeting and I want to kill somebody. Oh, I ain't alone? I ain't alone in that, huh? You didn't want to kill nobody at your area meeting? Oh. What's that? What? Yeah. I mean, I remember, I gotta use it, can I? We had a moment where, 2 moments of it, which is funny. I love Rick. And I know him to be a dude that has general concern and care for people in Narcotics Anonymous, you know. But at times we have personality clashes. That don't happen around here, right? So we're having a business meeting, and I saw him as him pressing my buttons. And so instead of me being responsible, taking responsibility for my buttons, I used that as a situation to get manipulated, whether he intentionally did it or not. I used that as a situation to let him or anybody just tap into my buttons, because we got to be honest, we're responsible for our buttons. And I could throw the litmus test on that. If some crazy homeless dude jumps out at you in the middle of the street and says, fuck you, you ain't worth shit, how you going to look at him? You crazy as hell. You walk away. Like, damn, get away from me. Is your automatic response just to beat his ass? No. But let somebody you love and care about say that to you. There's a test here. So it's not, I'm responsible for my buttons. I can't just say, man, because you hear it in the programs, man, somebody did this, man, I can't help it. That's how I react. No, you're stupid and you just got manipulated by somebody. Let's be honest, man. You just got manipulated, man. Because that's the truth. If my wife tells me, fuck you, you're worthless and you're a bastard, that would crush me. Crazy homeless dude. Stinky Steve, we'll call him. I don't know. That was from a convention a while back. Yeah, some dude does that. You're like, whatever, dude. You're crazy as hell, man. God bless you. You'll actually say, man, God bless you, dude. I'm out. Yeah. But it's true. So we're responsible for our buttons. We need to know what they are. We need to own them and be like, these are mine. And I need to take responsibility for them. Because I know that if this button is pressed, it's gonna trigger this emotion, to this emotion, to this emotion, and then I might act out. So I got to know, once this button is pressed, you hear it, the easy button, what am I feeling? You know, and if you can't recognize that and you feel something, a physical response happen, and you're like, all right, I know what this physical feeling is. I'm getting angry. Jesse's getting angry. You know, and why am I angry right now? That's all I know. I mean, I can't say that, you know, I have it together in a lot of areas with that, you know, but I know that there's, you know, I know that when I go home and my wife tells me, you are nicer to the youth at the church and the homeless people than you are to me. You know, and I'll be like, that messes with me. You know, and then automatically, you know, I got to own that, man. I mean, I need to be responsible for that. My first love in my life needs to be my family. And let's not get it twisted, man. We've always heard, you know, recovery first, you know, family second. All right, easy with that shit. Sometimes we take that crazy. All right, you know, if my daughter walks up to me and says, Dad, can we go play catch in the yard? I got a game tomorrow. And I'm like on the way out to the meeting. Guess what? It's time to play catch, man. You know, but if my ass is falling off and she's like, you know, I got to go to meeting. You know, I'm real blessed, man. I have a wife that's totally understanding. She's normal, you know, well. No, she's awesome. No, she is. She is. Woo! Yeah, she's not an addict. But she must be crazy hooking up with me, man. Look at me. I'm like a tattooed Chris Farley, man. And she's kind of hot too, you know. We've been married going on 14 years. Yeah. So I ain't trying to mess that up, man. You know, and she's not an emotional person. She's not a relationship-based person. She's very quiet, calculated, cold, reserved, stoic, I want to say. That's who she is. That's, you know, as much as I would like to solicit an emotional response out of her, you know, sometimes it gets to the point where I break her. You know, I press, oh, snap. You know, but, you know, as far as balanced living and emotionally balanced, man, I have to make sure that my family priorities are straight, you know, because they are not my source of recovery, but they're living, breathing inspirations. They're the reason that God brought me to Narcotics Anonymous, man. Let's not, you know, we're all walking miracles in a situation. You know, I don't care who you are. Somebody prayed for you and you're here. Right. Let's be honest, you know, and that was a prayer that was answered. And if, you know, and it's me, I like to think, man, maybe I'm the one that breaks that cycle. Because we got generations upon generations of, you know, it may be broken, it may be dysfunctional, but it's, you know, broken, and maybe another couple generations things get straightened out. I don't know. Maybe it'll balance then, you know. But no, man, it's emotions are tough, you know, and I've been fearful, man, and I've been not recognizing emotions, and I have been manipulated by my own buttons. That's what I should say instead of saying, you know, let somebody else manipulate. No, I've been manipulated by my buttons. I didn't because people are people, man. You know, and they're just people, man. You know, if I'm crazy, bonds are somebody else is crazy around here, and you know, I need to own that. You know, one of the things that helps me as far as balance, and I like what you had to say, Rick, as far as the waves and stuff. I mean, and how we always thought it was even on each side. But for balance for me is, am I applying these spiritual principles in all areas of my life? Am I loving? Because my wife would call me out on it. You know, you're real nice to them homeless people and them youth, but you come home and you're a jerk. And I'm like, well, I'm not too nice, you know? And I need to own that. You know, I need to take responsibility for that. You know, that's one freedom that recovery has given me, is the ability to take personal responsibility. You know, because I was manipulated by my buttons so much that other people saw it and just would manipulate it. My parents saw it. My family saw it, you know. And I know emotions are scary as far as, because anytime an emotion comes out, man, it's mostly like just tears. And I can't stop them. And sometimes they'll hit me wherever, man. They hit me in St. Louis. I was driving a truck, and I just started crying like, I want to be home. And I couldn't stop, you know? And I'm like, why? You know, if I would allow myself the freedom to let some of this out in other ways and let myself be open and vulnerable to somebody else instead of stuffing it, because that's what I do, that I wouldn't be in a uncontrollable emotional mess, you know. Rage scares me, you know. So I'm pretty good with that, man. I don't mess around and flip out on somebody. Most of the time, and I'm going to be honest, and this could be wrong, but it's just my own moral barometer on this, but I weigh the consequences of my decision, and if punching you in the face is an okay decision for me to make and I can deal with the consequences of it, okay. You know, that's how I look at it. You know, I'm sorry. I'm still that. I like to fight. That's who I am, you know, and it may not be the rightest stuff on the planet, you know, let's be honest, it's not, but if I could deal with the consequences and take personal responsibility for it, you know, that's up to me. You know, I think at times, man, we're ingrained for me as men, and I'm just talking to the fellas out here, man, we're supposed to be heroes. We are created for that purpose. You know, we're supposed to be a little harder, a little tougher. You know, we're supposed to be the one that wants to save the damsel in distress. You know, that's not a bad thing, man. That's who we are. That's how we're hardwired. And that's friggin' okay. Now, ladies, there's a pendulum swing on that. You know, you guys want a guy who's passionately involved in your life and wants to be that hero. The other pendulum swing is he might be out of control once in a while. You gotta let loose. Now, I ain't saying it's okay to like flip over cars and burn down and riot or nothing like that, but I have to have that outlet to be wild. I have to. If I don't, I'm a mess. That's why I love conventions, because it gives me that opportunity to just act a fool, man. You know? And one area I struggle with, and I kind of all over the place, man. I'm sorry. Usually I'm better than this. Man, you're better than that, man. Old football days. Come on, man. Wrap it up, Jesse. You better than that, man. Quit blocking with your face, man. Yeah, with fighting. Quit blocking with your face, man. You better than that. Come on. You know, that I could get with. I understand that mentality. I can't do that with my kid. I created a monster, man. My daughter is 9, and okay, I'm just gonna share some personal stuff with you. Before recovery, I used to do, and I was involved in competition martial arts. And as a direct result of active addiction, I just totally threw that out the window. And I had some great opportunities ahead of me, and I got scared of them, and I quit, and my addiction was just nuts. And it's right around the time I started coming into the program. I had some physical limitations that had happened to me in a few years, and I had some issues with just physically. So recently, I was able to get my daughter and I, a couple years ago, back involved in martial arts in our old system that we used to be under. I walk into a tournament, and I'm like, man, this is probably 10 years to the date within a month that I actually walked into a ring again, right? First 2 events, I did okay. Last event was fighting, sparring. I lost my first match, threw my helmet across the ring. Fucking bullshit. Right? My kid's watching me. Right? This is bullshit. I'm like, stupid Korean Taekwondo. If this was a cage match, I'd be fucking them all up. You know, stupid rules. I showed my ass, boy. My instructor was the center ref. He's like, pick up your helmet. It's funny, because as soon as my helmet flew out, as soon as it left my hands, I'm like, you're an asshole. It was instant. Motherfucker, you're an asshole. I'm like, oh my God, I just did that. Right? 2 weeks ago, my daughter plays softball. Yeah, well, yeah. No, I didn't act a fool at the softball. Come on. She gets up to the plate, strike, steps out of box, stare eyes down the pitcher. I'm like, I wasn't there. Another addict was. He told me all about it. Yeah, he was like, man, who does she think she is? So steps up, whoop, strike 2. Did it again. Then she struck out swinging. First strikeout, she was upset, emotional, that's baseline for her. Second one, she ran from the plate, through the dugout, ran out of the dugout, found her equipment bag, and threw her back. I mean, probably about 15 feet, just and I'm like, oh, I felt, hey, you're an asshole. Yeah, I created a monster, man. And that's totally my fault. And I had to have a talk with her and just be like, you know what? I'm sorry. I let you down. I put a lot of pressure on you to perform. And we want to press them, but we don't want to break them. And I'm just nuts. You know, everything's full. Let's go. Let's fight. You know, and I can't deal with, I have a hard time balancing that, man. The greatest thing that I learned for me as far as some of my out of control mindset I like to go through the brick wall, is I had to learn. Actually, I had an instructor tell me that you spar your daughter. You ain't going to go after her the way you go after the other guys, and you're going to learn how to use another gear. And that's the thing. It's about having another gear in our life, another strategy. We can go full on into an obsession. We could go full on in an emotional swing, but we have to have another gear, where it's okay. This gear's not spinning so fast. It's not spinning so hard. I could still feel myself okay to be emotional, but I don't have to take it to that next level, man. I have to divert it. I have to go somewhere. I have to, One of the things that helps me is I have this mindset is that if I give all I can, God gives me all I need. And like I said, and I'm sincere about that, the homeless thing, man. Go mop the floor at the homeless shelter. Just show up, be like, hey, man, I just want to love you guys. Can I mop your floor? Yeah. Clean your bathroom? Something to humble me. Be like, no, yeah, because you're not big addict, man. You don't have to have a big chip on your shoulder. You don't have to validate yourself every time you walk into a room. You could just love somebody and be all right. And the rewards from that are just outstanding, on different levels. If we live a little selflessly, man, we will be surprised what it does for our emotions. Because I think for me, a lot of my stuff is always feeling, am I worth it? Am I living a purpose? Am I making a difference? Am I somebody? Because all my life I've been told I was nobody and it's unsafe. Am I somebody? Am I making a difference? Am I making a change? And it drives me nuts. It's an obsession, instead of, going to where just taking it down a little bit and just being like, you know what, man? You just gotta love somebody, man. And it's stupid. And I know it's hokey and like kumbaya and let's all hold hands and stuff. And it's, but it's extremely therapeutic for me, man. That's good medicine. It's good medicine just doing something for somebody that you don't know, don't care, or do something you hate for somebody you don't like.
Come on now.
I've been told to do that, and that sucks. Oh my goodness, man. Because it was given to me freely here. Those nights that I prayed for help, God answered, brought me here. So I can't negate that. I can't, and that works tremendously on my emotional release. I don't have to learn that. I don't have to validate myself and have a chip on my shoulder all the time. That I'm slowly learning. I had a sponsor tell me, he said, you need to start learning how to be okay with you because you ain't going to accomplish shit. I'm like, oh, fucking hate you. I hope bad shit happens to you. Hope you sit on the toilet and you're out of toilet paper, motherfucker. Oh, I'm sorry. No, man, but I don't want nothing real bad to happen to him. It'll be easy, I just wanted to be tremendously inconvenienced, turtle walking out of the John. Wow, I'm sorry. Lord, forgive me. And he has to. You know what? I get a lot of joy and just happiness being around recovering addicts and being around the convention, man. I do, and it's such a great outlet for me because there's gonna be there's times in my life where it's just tough and emotional and hurtful and white knuckling it through situations, man. That I have people to reach out to, people that understand me, people that are able to call me out on my behaviors, so I can start recognizing what these emotions are. Because every decision I made in the past was based off an emotional response. I had to do the next right thing in spite of my emotional responses. I had to learn that. And once I learned to do that, a great freedom started to happen because I learned that I didn't have to be manipulated by my buttons anymore. I can own them and move forward. Because it's tough. I never understood that walk away. Somebody picking on you, walk away. Ooh, hit him in the mouth. It's dumb. You know, I don't have to validate myself today, man. Jesse's okay with learning how to be Jesse. You know, and I'm a good dude. You know, and if I have a higher power that that his plan is not to harm me, but to give me hope and a future, and he loves me, why do I beat myself up so much? Because we got a disease that wants to rob us of our love and hope and dreams. We just do, you know. It wants to get us alone. And we're not created to be alone. We're created to be in families and societies. And look at it. Every civilization on the planet, you're automatically part of something bigger than yourself. You know? But my disease wants me alone. You know, and hurting and upset because I spent most of my early stuff hurting and upset. You know, and there's a great freedom that comes with, you know, this. And I just hope, man, I don't know. I kind of went off on tangents this morning, and I apologize. No, I don't. But I said it. And I'll be honest, man, you want some real honest sharing to happen at a meeting, man, listen to a newcomer. I'm just going to be honest, man, because newcomers didn't learn how to speak that recovery talking spiritual principles based upon my third step, open-mindedness and willingness. You know, help me move forward in the process of recovery. Yeah, when a newcomer just walks in and just says, man, I'm fucked up. I know, I'm glad I'm here. You know, I feel like using today. You know, and you'd be like, man, that's the real shit there, man. That's why we're here. You know, that's one thing I learned. Or even praying, you know, if you go to a place of worship and, you know, you want to have somebody who really wants to connect with God, listen to somebody who just walked in the door for the first time or first few times. That's a real honest prayer before they started learning to talk that big talk, that big impressive. Jesus. You know, just man, I'm screwed up, God. I need help. You know, help me. I don't want to hurt nobody today. I don't want to hurt myself today. I want to give myself a break today. You know, that's real, and I can identify with that. Some of the other grandiose behavior that happens around here, there's like a pomp and circumstance and shit that happens around here. That's funny. It's funny to me. Some of that stuff's funny to me, man. You know, I love recovering people, man. I do, because we're all awesome. That's all I got.